The Krithar ship appeared at the edge of Earth's defense grid without warning, a black, scarred vessel drifting silently against the stars. Alarms rang across every orbital station, and fleets moved into formation, weapons primed for the galaxy's most feared predator. For generations, the Krithar had been the nightmare of countless worlds, unstoppable hunters who could track prey for years, never missing their kill. Yet this one came alone, its hull cracked, systems failing. Captain Marcus Hale, leader of Earth's Special Operations Fleet, was ordered to make first contact, though every instinct told him it could be a trap. When their docking bay opened, the figure that stepped out was massive, armored in fractured plates, eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. Soldiers kept their rifles locked on him, fingers tense on the trigger. The alien raised his hands slowly, his voice deep and steady as it echoed through the chamber. "I am Varric, and I have not come to hunt." He spoke of a threat far greater than the Krithar, a force that had destroyed his kind and was moving toward Earth. The silence that followed was heavy, for in that moment, humanity realized that if the deadliest hunter in the galaxy was seeking help, something unimaginable was coming. Varric's voice was low, but every word carried the weight of entire worlds lost. He told Captain Hale and the gathered commanders about the Devourer's machines without emotion, mercy, or weakness, built to strip planets to their cores. They did not conquer, they erased. His own people, the Krithar, had once been proud and unbeatable, yet the Devourers had dismantled them piece by piece until only scattered survivors drifted through the galaxy. Varric had been hunted himself, forced to abandon his clan, watching their final stronghold burn from orbit. Now, he warned, the machines had set their course toward human space. Hale studied the alien carefully, unsure if this was truth or manipulation, but the desperation in Varric's gaze was unlike any predator he had seen before. The Krithar admitted that he chose humanity because they were unpredictable fighters who turned weakness into advantage, who ignored the rules other species followed. "They cannot read you," Varric said. "And that is the only reason you can win." The room fell silent, the distant hum of the station's engines the only sound. If the galaxy's most feared hunter saw humanity as the last hope, then the enemy approaching was beyond anything they had ever imagined. The agreement was made in a sealed war room. Far from the eyes of the public, Varric would remain on Earth under the protection of Captain Hale's unit, and in return, he would teach them the art of the Krithar hunt. From the very first day, the soldiers realized this was unlike any training they had ever faced. Varric did not teach them to fight in straight lines or follow rigid plans. He taught them to vanish into shadows, to move without sound even in a storm, to read the smallest changes in the air, and predict an enemy's movement before it happened. They trained in forests at night with no lights, in abandoned urban ruins filled with traps, in deserts where every footstep left a signal for a predator to follow. Varric's methods were brutal. He stalked them himself, appearing without warning, striking with blunted weapons to prove how easily they could die if they made a mistake. Yet the humans adapted quickly, faster than he expected. They bent his rules, broke patterns, and sometimes defeated him with tricks no Krithar would consider honorable. Rather than angering him, it fascinated him. He began to understand what made humans dangerous. They did not cling to tradition. They changed the game entirely. One exercise took them into the frozen mountains, where Varric unleashed drones programmed to hunt without rest. The soldiers used misdirection, false trails, and even bait made from their own gear to turn the hunters into the hunted, luring them into an avalanche they triggered manually. Watching from above, Varric felt something he had not felt since before his people's fall excitement. Humanity was not the strongest species he had met, nor the most technologically advanced, but their creativity was a weapon in itself. Every day, the lines between teacher and student blurred. Varric began adopting human tactics into his own style, realizing they could confuse even the Devourer's relentless programming. Captain Hale noticed the shift too. The alien no longer spoke of your people and my people, but began saying our pack. Still, the unspoken truth hung in the air training was only the beginning, and soon these lessons would be tested against an enemy that had destroyed entire civilizations without slowing down. Somewhere out in the dark, the Devourers were coming, and both human and Krithar knew they had little time left. The warning came in the dead of night, an outer colony. Vega 4, had gone silent. No distress call, no communication, just a sudden emptiness where life had been hours earlier. Recon drones sent to investigate transmitted only a single frame before their feed cut out, massive shapes moving through the darkness, tearing structures apart with mechanical precision. Captain Hale's unit was deployed immediately, with Varric at his side, their mission not to destroy but to lure the Devourers into a carefully prepared trap. The journey to the colony was silent. Every soldier reviewing the plan in their mind signals would be jammed to limit the machine's coordination. Explosives buried along narrow corridors would funnel them into a kill zone, and an orbital weapon platform would deliver the final strike. But no plan ever survived first contact. The moment they landed, the air was thick with the sound of grinding metal and the distant thud of collapsing buildings. Moving through the ruins, they spotted their targets towering, insect-like machines with bladed limbs and glowing cores pulsing like heartbeats. The team spread out, planting charges while Varric moved like a shadow, marking enemy patrol routes and silently eliminating lone scouts with precision strikes. At one point, a Devourer drone broke formation, heading toward their explosives cache, and Hale made a split-second decision to expose himself, drawing it away with gunfire as Varric leapt from the rooftops to sever its power core. Every movement was timed to the second, every decision a gamble. Slowly, they led the machines deeper into the trap, using false signals and decoys to convince the Devourers they had cornered their prey. When the last of them crossed into the strike zone, Hale gave the order. The ground shook as hidden charges detonated, collapsing buildings and forcing the machines into the open. In orbit, the platform's weapon fired, a blinding beam cutting through the night and slicing the enemy apart. Silence followed brief, almost fragile before the team realized they had survived. But Varric's expression was grim. "This was only their scouts," he said quietly, scanning the smoking wreckage. "The true hunt begins now." And in that moment, every soldier understood that this victory was nothing more than a warning to the galaxy's most dangerous enemy. The team returned to Earth as heroes, but there was no celebration, only quiet preparation. The battle at Vega 4 had proved one thing: the Devourers could be fought, but they would return in far greater numbers. In the medical bay, Varric lay recovering from deep wounds taken while shielding Hale from an exploding drone. Despite the alien's usual stoic nature, there was a shift in his eyes when Hale visited. "Among my kind," Varric said, his voice rough. "We hunt alone, but I no longer walk alone." It was more than gratitude, it was an oath. From that day, he was no longer a guest or an outsider. He was part of the unit, part of what he now called the Pack. Training intensified, merging Krithar discipline with human unpredictability, creating strategies no other species could imagine. Word of the Alliance spread quietly through the shadow networks of the galaxy, reaching ears that trembled at the thought of humanity fighting alongside the galaxy's deadliest hunter. Yet both Hale and Varric knew this was just the beginning. Somewhere in the dark, the Devourers were gathering, adapting, and learning. But so were they. And when the machines came again, they would not face prey, they would face hunters. A new kind of hunters. A pack,